When the straw hat flag flaps in a storm, it's usually Luffy everyone fears. Until a green-haired swordsman cracks his neck, ties on a bandana, and turns the horizon into confetti. Roronoa Zoro doesn't posture, boast, or even look back to see if you're still standing. He just unsheathes steel, flexes a grin, and lets gravity drop the punchline. These are the 15 moments he flexed so hard the Grand Line itself felt smaller afterward. Clashing with emperors, splitting castles, and blocking attacks that should have erased him in one swing. If you've ever wondered why Marines still whisper, "Three-sword demon," when they check the Night Watch, this countdown is your reminder. Bandana on, katanas out, time to follow the scent of iron and ozone through Zoro's most savage showcases. Teen, Episode 1951 Enma Test Run. Just after the fall of Wano, Zoro stands on a windswept cliff overlooking the sea, Enma at his side for the first time. The air crackles with anticipation as he yanks the scabbard from its belt. Every villager, every samurai, even the lingering ashes of the Kozoki forge seems to pause. Enma's blade flares an inky purple, its reputation for siphoning haki legendary and feared. With a steady breath, Zoro lifts the sword overhead and slashes downward in one fluid motion. The steel whistles a challenge, biting into the sheer rock face and carving a jagged groove 2 meters wide in under a heartbeat. Stone fractures, pebbles explode outward like shrapnel, and a thunderous crack echoes across the bay. But instead of letting the cut run its course, Zoro clamps Enma's hilt, channeling his haki to wrest back control. The sword shudders, resisting, but Zoro's grip never falters. The raw tension visible in his forearms as he locks the blade mid-slice. When the echo dies, only a single, precise incision remains, no wider than a finger, and Enma's purple aura dims to a calm glow. Zoro steps back, breathing easy, haki intact. In that instant, he proved he can bend the demon blade to his will, overcoming its hunger for his spirit and earning Enma's unquestioned respect. That moment cemented Zoro as more than a wielder. He became the master of one of the world's most dangerous swords. 14. Episode 3062, Ursa Shock Block. The air over Marineford trembles as Bartholomew Kuma plants his paw on the deck and unleashes Ursa's shock, a seismic blast meant to flatten everyone in its path. From the far end of the plaza, Zoro sees the ground buckle in concentric ripples. With no hesitation, he strides forward, drives Shushu through fractured stone until only the black-hilted guard remains visible, and pours every ounce of his armament haki into the blade. As the pressure wave races toward him, a thunderous roar fills the air. Rocks shatter like cheap pottery and sailors are hurled off their feet in exploding showers of grit. But where the blast meets Shushui, it stops dead. Steel and haki hold that invisible wall steady while the shock of crumples into splintered rubble. Each heartbeat feels like an earthquake in Zoro's bones. Yet he never wavers, sword hilt buried ankle deep, eyes locked ahead. In that breath-snapping moment, Zoro became the unbreakable backbone of the rescue, an immovable pillar who turned a world-level attack into nothing more than scattered debris so his friends could slip through unscathed. 13. Episode 557 to Fish Man Island Air Slash. Above the churning waters of Ryugu Palace's tank, Zoro rises from the wreckage of a collapsed corridor, Shushui strapped at his side. Hody Jones' squad of enhanced fish men surges forward, confident in their aquatic advantage. Until Zoro plants 1-2 on the whetstone, grips his sword with murderous intent, and channels armament haki into the blade. In a motion almost too fast to track, he swings overhand. The air itself incarnates into a solid, 108-pound arc of compressed steel, Phoenix Air Slash. A silent razor wind lances through the water surface, cleaving waves and armor alike. Dozens of Hody's warriors are torn from their footing, bodies tumbling through the air before splatting back into the tank like stones. The shockwave races outward, shearing barnacles from the palace walls and sending debris flying into stunned marines and pirates alike. When the frothing water stills, only Zoro remains standing, sheathed sword raised, breathing steady. His calm contrast against the carnage makes it clear even underwater armies are no match for a swordsman who can turn a single slash into a whirlwind of destruction. 12 Episode 981, You're Too Slow. Apoo. The tense hush before the Onigashima raid shatters when Scratchman Apoo's trumpets blare. His devil fruit transforms sound into explosive shockwaves that turn any battlefield into a cacophonic trap. Zoro, flanked by Law and Kid, gauges distance as Apoo's rhythm bombs ripple through the air. In a heartbeat, Zoro ties on his green headband, steps into a loose stance, and grips Enma's hilt. Apoo unleashes a crescendo of drum roll blasts. Steel drums hover around him like floating mines. But before the first boom can even peak, Zoro vanishes in a flash of motion so swift it warps the sound itself. He appears behind Apoo in one seamless leap, Enma's black blade humming with absorbed haki. A single, whisper-quiet slice severs the nearest drum cube mid-air. Its explosion fizzles harmlessly at Apoo's feet. Another slash shears through an approaching sound wave, carving a hollow tunnel of silence through the onslaught. Apoo whirls, eyes wide as Zoro's silhouette emerges in the dissipating smoke. With a cocked grin and a single word, slow, he presses the tip of Enma to the pirate's throat. The only blast left is the final click of ice, could steel locking him in place. In that instant, Zoro didn't just dodge a deadly devil fruit, he turned its signature power into nothing more than background noise. 11 Episode 611 Dragon Blaze. On the scorched decks of Punk Hazard, Caesar clowns monstrous. Steam-spitting dragon lumbered into view. An engine of molten gas and metal designed to roast anyone who dared enter its maw. Zoro stepped forward, armament coating his blade until it glowed molten black, then summoned the heat with a fierce roar of his own. In a single, fluid motion he slashed across the dragon's neck, and the sword erupted in a flash of orange. Dragon blaze slash, slicing the contraption in two as if it were paper. Fire and gears spewed skyward, steam hissed through the rift, and the dragon's head clattered to the ground, its threat extinguished in the same heartbeat it was unleashed. In that moment, Zoro proved that no fiery monstrosity, natural or man-made, could stand against a swordsman who wields Hakai like a forge. 10. Episode 67, Whiskey Peak Massacre. The Straw Hats arrive at Whiskey Peak to a hero's welcome, a lavish feast laid out by ostensibly friendly townsfolk. But as Nami and Usopp drift into slumber beneath the banquet table, Zoro's instincts scream, trap. He slips into the shadows, green bandana tied and 3 swords at the ready. One by one, Baroque Works bounty hunters spring their ambush. Dozens of them, blades drawn, confidence high. What follows is a whirlwind of steel. Zoro steps onto the feast-strewn floor and becomes a one-man tempesting. A rapid Toragari tiger hunt rips through the first rank, sending masked assassins flying. A spinning Kujak peacock slash cleaves the next wave in half, and a sudden Sanzen Sekai 3000 world splits wooden pillars like matchsticks. Every attack is perfectly measured. No wasted motion, no hesitation. So that before the final trumpets can sound, over 100 trained killers lie strewn in a crater of broken tables and dented armor. When he emerges into the moonlit courtyard, Zoro is dust-covered and sword-drip red, but utterly calm. He brushes a speck of wine from his scabbard, surveys the carnage with a nod, and strides back toward his ship as if nothing extraordinary just happened. In episode 67's iconic moment, Zoro didn't just survive an ambush. He turned a death trap into an instant massacre, cementing his reputation as the Straw Hats' fiercest enforcer, but the Grand Line had even warmed to their names. 9. Episode 5 and 61, Underwater Flex. Deep beneath Ugu Palace's flooded corridors, Zoro finds himself chest-deep in icy water as Hody Jonas's enhanced fishmen close in. With no room to swing and breath ticking down, he drives Shushu's tip into the slick stone floor, seals it with armament Haki, and locks his stance. Then, gathering every ounce of strength in the blade, he lifts and swings in a single, Rosenhot arc. 108-pound Phoenix air slash. The steel wave erupts under the surface, turning water into a tornado of razor-sharp compression. Hody's soldiers are cleaved off their feet in seconds, bodies tumbling through the flooded hall like driftwood. Coral shards and tank glass spray everywhere, and the collapsed tank's walls splinter in a ring around Zoro's pivot point. Seconds later, the water calms and visibility returns, only to reveal Zoro standing ankle-deep in seawater, sword tip buried in fractured stone, breathing steady. No staggering, no hesitation, just the echo of steel slicing air and water alike. In that moment, he proved a true master of his craft. Even the crushing pressure of the deep can't stop a swordsman who turns a single slash into a whirlwind of destruction. 8. Episode 1936, Zoro Vase. Kamazo. Deep in the bowels of Onigashima, Zoro corners the terrifying assassin Kamazo, later revealed as killer, armed not with his usual 3 swords but with 2 borrowed blades and a jagged scythe. As steel clashes against steel in a narrow corridor, Kamazo's deadly speed and razor-sharp mask seem unbeatable, yet Zoro moves like liquid Haki-fueled lightning. With a thunderous roar, he charges through Kamazo's whirlwind of slashes, coating his borrowed swords in armament Haki until they glow obsidian black. Then, in one savage upward sweep, he cleaves the scythe apart and sends its fragments raining against the stone walls, before driving both Haki-infused swords straight through Kamazo's mask, shattering it in a burst of fractured steel. The echo of cracking metal dies to silence and Zoro steps back, breathing evenly, his dripping blades reflecting torchlight as he offers the surviving Flying Six a single, cool smirk. In that moment, he proved that no assassination order, no matter how brutal, can stand against a swordsman whose mastery over Haki and steel re-rules of the blade. 7. Episode 119, Steel. So what? In the scorching sands of Alabasta, Zoro faces Daz Bones Mr. 1, a Baroque Works officer whose body has turned into living steel. As the duel begins, bone blades slash through sandstorms and steel claws hiss. But Zoro doesn't flinch. He closes his eyes, inhales the desert heat, and calls upon his Asura aura, and microburst 9 phantom blades flicker around him, shimmering with Haki. Then, with a single, deliberate exhale, Zoro snaps his eyes open and grips Wado Ikamanji. He steps forward into the steel gauntlet's arc, sword tip angled just so, and delivers a precise Tatsumaki tornado blade across Mr. Fur's forearm. Instead of glancing off like every other blade before it, the steel tears open as if it were parchment, sparks flying in a shower of molten edge. Mr. 1 stumbles back, eyes wide, unable to reconcile the sensation of his own muscle and metal parting at Zoro's command. Moments later, Zoro finishes the fight with a swift Ogik Sanzakai, cleaving the assassin's steel torso in half. No frantic slashes, no complex gambits, just the assertion that even living steel is paper beneath a swordsman who hears the breath of things and strikes like the wind. That instant cemented Zoro's status, not merely a breaker of blades, but a shaper of fate itself. 6. Episode 302 Azura vs Kaku. The CP9 assault on Eni's lobby reaches its fever pitch as Zoro, bloodied and cornered, finds himself face-to-face with Kaku's terrifying new form, a centaur-like fusion of human and ox, muscles rippling beneath taut skin. Steel hooves scar the stone walkway as Kaku charges, his bladed limbs whistling with each strike. Every slash threatens to cleave Zoro in two, until the swordsman ties on his green bandana and calls upon his ultimate resolve. In a flicker of motion, 3 more phantom arms sprout around Zoro, each brandishing an ethereal blade. His guise shifts into Asura, a 9-sword demon deity whose crimson aura crackles with haki. With a battle cry that echoes off Judicial Tower's walls, Zoro lunges, a whirlwind of 9 intersecting slashes that move faster than the eye can follow. Kaku attempts a counter. Steel horn meeting steel blade. But each phantom sword finds a seam in his defenses, each strike chipping away at his monstrous form. The final arrives in a single, perfect sequence. Zoro's central blade cleaves through Kaku's shoulder while the 8 spectral swords shudder his joints. A triumphant ojig, Ishibujin first silver mist rends the remaining bone blade at Kaku's throat, and the centaur demon collapses in a fountain of steam and shattered steel. Ashura's aura fades. Zoro stands alone once more, breathing steady, scars gleaming in dawn's light. The 3-sword demon, proven unstoppable even against the deadliest of assassins. 5. Episode 377, Nothing Happened. After Zoro and Luffy's fierce battle against CP9, Bartholomew Kuma materializes atop the Thousand Sunny, raising a massive paw charged with his paw fruit power. In a heartbeat, he slaps the air in Luffy's agony. Every fractured bone, every ounce of fatigue, erupts as a crimson shockwave. Yet when the blast clears, Luffy stands untouched, chest heaving but smiling. The camera shifts to reveal Zoro, slumped at the gangway's base, wrists and chest webbed in fresh cuts and bruises. Blood drips from a half-healed wound in his side, his kimono is shredded, and his swords lie scattered in the splintered decking. Sanji rushes over, horror in his eyes, as Zoro pushes himself up on one arm. A single, crooked grin curls at his lips and he brushes the blood from his hair. It's nothing. Those 2 words echo louder than any clash of steel. Zoro had shouldered not only Luffy's pain but every ounce of it, turning a devil fruit's signature power into a mere inconvenience. In that moment, he proved he would suffer any torment so his captain could walk away unscathed. And he did it all without so much as a wince. That is the true meaning of a swordsman's sacrifice, and the flex that defined the heart of Roronoa Zoro. 4. Episode 608 Monet Split. Deep in the frost-clad allies of Dressrosa, Monet unleashed a blizzard of razor-cold snowflakes, phasing in and out as only a Loja user can. Zoro didn't even flinch. He closed his eyes, let his haki swell into a silent wave of raw killing intent, and the air itself answered. Monet's form flickered mid-vanish, then stiffened and cracked from head to toe, as if an invisible katana had sliced her in half. Snow-white fragments of ice and fabric tumbled to the ground in 2 perfect halves before Zoro ever drew steel. Only after the shards settled did he unsheath Wado Ikamanji, tap the blade against the cobblestones, and mutter, "Next time, show yourself properly." In that single, wordless moment, he proved that his presence alone was sharper than any devil fruit power. 3. Episode 719 Ichi Gorilla. High above Dressrosa's Colosseum, Zoro confronts Pica's living rock golem, a towering monstrosity 8 kilometers tall, its body forged from the island's mountains. As the hollowed giant prepares to crush him beneath crushing stone limbs, Zoro locks eyes on its core, and ties on his bandana and calls out his signature technique, Ichi Gorilla. In a heartbeat, he launches skyward, blades whirling in a blur of green and steel. His 3 swords slice simultaneously through air and rock, each strike shearing away entire mountain spurts with surgical precision. Chunks of the golem's torso erupt outward like fireworks. Boulders jag shards, and pulverized gravel raining down in a storm of pulverized stone. Then, as if defying gravity itself, Zoro flicks his blades upward and kicks off a floating chunk of debris, landing feet first on a shattered shoulder plateau with the grace of a cat. Below him, the remains of Pica's form collapse into a tidal wave of rubble, while his own silhouette stands perfect and unscathed against the dust cloud. In that moment, Zoro proved that even the world's largest obstacles shatter to nothing when met by a single, unstoppable slash. Thud 2, Episode 1018. Blocking Haki on Onagashima's war-ravaged rooftop, the combined might of 2 emperors converges. Kato's thunderous Reimei hack and Big Mom's cataclysmic soulfire assault target the Straw Hat's inner circle. As torrents of lightning and living fire fuse into a world-shaking beam, backup crumbles around him. Kano's misfire, roof timbers splinter, and even Luffy's Gear 4th trembles under the raw force. Zoro doesn't hesitate. With 1 sword planted in the fractured wood and 2 raised overhead, he summons every ounce of armament haki and channels it into a 3-sword guard. The moment the Hakai wave slams into his blades, a blinding flash of sparks erupts. Steel glows white-hot under the dual assault. For a heartbeat that stretches into eternity, nothing moves, neither fire nor lightning can penetrate Zoro's haki-forged barrier. Then, with a grunt of effort, he drives his swords forward, fracturing the beam into fractal arcs of raw energy that dissipate harmlessly into the sky. Behind him, stunned allies blink into motion. Before him, 2 Yonkos stare in wordless shock. In that single defiant stand, Zoro proved he could shoulder the apocalypse itself and live to swing his blades again. 1. Episode 1061. King of Hell 3 Sword Style. The battlefield of Wano's rooftop is a war zone of shattered pagodas and fallen samurai when Zoro confronts King Kaido's right hand, encased in crimson wildfire armor and shrugging off every strike. As King's volcanic wings unfurl, rain of molten sparks and steel-piercing hail converge on Zoro from every angle. Without hesitation, Zoro ties on his bandana, grips Enma and his 2 other swords, and invokes King of Hell 3 Sword Style. In an instant, 9 phantom blades surge around him, an aura of pure haki so oppressive it drags embers from the air. Zoro launches 3 simultaneous slashes, one to tear through King's armored fire, one to slice through his armored torso, and the third to sunder the magma for jewed wings. Each strike lands in perfect unison, detonating King's armor like brittle obsidian and sending the great beast pirate crashing through the rooftop with a roar of disbelief. As dust settles, Zoro stands triumphant, swords bathed in the glow of extinguished flames, proving that he can not only match an emperor's elite lieutenant blow for blow, but can shatter his reputation with a single, 3-fold flex. From cleaving mountain armies in midair to shouldering emperor-level assaults, Zoro's blade has time and again redrawn the limits of swordsmanship, and left every challenger wondering if they even stood a chance. These 15 flexes prove that whether it's steel, stone, or the very elements, nothing can withstand the will of the 3-sword demon. If you think we missed an epic Zoro moment, slice into the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell for more deep dives into the world's greatest pirates.